after watching the last two videos that I made, I thought I really needed to make one more on this topic, and that is about inflation. If the government, the civil government, the state, is in more debt than 1 GDP of the entire global economy, how did they get there? Not that long. They haven't been really a deficit nation for too long. I think in the 80s. They were still in a surplus. So maybe in the end of the 80s, they became a deficit nation. So how did they get into so much debt? And where did they get this money? Well, that tells you that not even the massive taxes that they collect for their Ministry of Justice and all their other ministries was never enough for them. Okay, so God says you can have $4 per man 20 years old and older for your civil government, and it should be limited to a Ministry of Justice and limited to these amount of funds. Half a shekel of silver. Something went wrong somewhere. I mean, this is consumption at such a great level by a state. Where did they get this money? Well, they borrowed it. Definitely. They borrowed it from China. But, you know, China it hasn't been that long that they've been more capitalistic than the United States, that they've opened up their markets, and that they've been buying American debt. So, of course, China gave them the money. That would be a really neat thing to look up to see how much money China, or how much debt has China bought. Because that's like, if I take out a mortgage, then my house belongs to the bank until I pay off my mortgage. So that means part of the wealth of the United States, or the United States, belongs to China until the United States can pay back China. Right? And who else have they borrowed money from? Well, the Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve Bank, they've borrowed money from them. Okay, so that means that the Federal Reserve Bank, which is not part of the civil government at all, matter of fact, it's a private bank, owns also the United States, the wealth of the United States. So you have a private bank who, I don't know who owns it or who runs it, and China, and maybe other little nations like North Korea. Who else have bought America's debt? They own America. So this is just such a disaster for a supposedly Christian nation. The only way that America can pay back that debt is to inflate. And that means to print money, which means they have to borrow that money from the Federal Reserve, since the Federal Reserve has the monopoly on printing the money. Now, I don't know if I'm right on this. If you are an economist that knows what's going on, please let me know. But I think that they have to go more into debt by printing this money because they don't want to cut their budget. They rather sell themselves, if you will, to the devil than to cut their budget and become thrifty. That is what's going on. Inflation only can happen